It was much easier directing chickens than I expected it would be. They were very easy to work with.
Come here, chicken.
Hi, I'm Clint Bentley. I'm the co-writer and director of Train Dreams, and this is Filmmaker Diaries. I guess it took many years to come to this story. I had been a fan of Dennis Johnson's for a long, long time. The producers reached out with the rights to the book and asked me to think about adapting it. It really just came alive very quickly as a story, and it was so simple and yet so complex. And I think those are my favorite stories, where you can say what it is very quickly and very easily, and yet it contains multitudes. I can't listen to music as I write, but I always like to make a playlist for not only myself as I'm developing, but also as something to give to the crew and the cast and producers and everybody else to try and give a sense of what the feeling of the film will be. And it's very wide ranging. It's got Leonard Cohen on there and Bill Callahan. There's Pharoah Sanders on there, Dvorak, Tchaikovsky, trying to make a period piece and something that felt very historically accurate, but also not fall into something that feels tired, and a visual language or a filmic language that feels like something from the past, you know? The playlist was a big part of that, of finding this musical language that helped set a tone that brought those paradoxes to life. You know, a big inspiration on this film was Tarkovsky, specifically Mirror and Stalker and Andrei Rublev. He always found some way to approach things quite simply in some ways, but reveal such a depth and such a resonance in even little small moments. Adolfo and I went back and forth a lot with this imagery that seems to suggest something so much deeper than whatever you're seeing. Jules and Jim was a big influence as well. Something that Jules and Jim does quite beautifully is show the impact of history on people's lives and on the average person's life. I love Hayao Miyazaki, and Miyazaki was a big influence on the way I wanted to approach the film thematically, portraying this reverence for nature and the magic of nature and the magic of the natural world and the richness of the natural world. We wanted to make sure that nature was its own character. The natural world and the animals and the trees were not just these background elements to the lives of people and to the stories that the people were living, but had their own stories. And I really just wanted to explore and show how much we are intertwined with the natural world, not only in how we affect it, but how it affects us in our lives. I make a lookbook for every film, and it's another thing like a playlist to make the black and white words on a script come to life a little bit more. You know, I try with the lookbooks that I make for films, and for this one in particular, to not make it too specific. And so it's not like a lot of photos of different actors and things like that. It's more the feeling of the characters and the feeling of the film. And so making a character page for each character that has a lot of photos that may or may not have anything to do with how the character looks or behaves, but just get the feeling of the character across. When I'm preparing for a film, I try and research as much as possible, and that takes many different forms. With a film like this, where it is set during a specific time, I try and read as much as I can about that time, because you never know what little tidbit is going to just be in your toolbox that's gonna pop up on the day. I also try and research as much as I can into the place that we'll be filming, and in this case it was Washington State. There were quite a few locations that we used that turned out to be very magical, that I found just by looking around on the internet or driving around when I was out there just kind of aimlessly. You never know what the world is gonna give you. And so I try and do as much research and watching different movies and things like that as I can. When I'm on set, the only real ritual I have is just trying to get to set early. And on this one, Adolfo and I would make a habit of that, of just kind of walking around the set before the actors arrived and we're getting ready for shooting, just to feel what it's like that day. What is the light doing that day, and how's the wind moving that day? Is there something that you didn't notice the last time you were there that can really help a scene come to life? And then also, I like to be a part of the safety meeting when all the crew gets together in the morning and we kind of lay out what we're gonna do and just talk about the reason we're shooting each of these scenes and the story behind them and the spirit behind them that's outside of, hey, here's what equipment we're gonna use, or here's what stunts are gonna be involved, or anything like that. Just talk about the heart of each scene. I really feel like that gives the rest of the cast and crew just more to work with, and they end up bringing the scene to life in a way that's beyond anything I could have envisioned for it, and is much better than a lot of times than anything I thought about. So there are some scenes where it is a dialogue scene and you know it, and the dialogue is there, and it's really strong, and you need characters saying the words in order to get something across. And then there are other scenes where you've written this scene and you feel like you need all the dialogue, and then you get to the scene and you realize that the scene's actually better if you throw most of the dialogue out. And yet you needed the dialogue there to kind of understand, when you were writing it, to understand what the scene was about. And so it's just a process of listening to the film, listening to your actors, and being open to whatever the scene is trying to give you in that moment, and hoping you don't paint yourself too far into a corner in the process. Thanks for watching Filmmaker Diaries, and please check out Train Dreams, now on Netflix.